From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker.
Great to have you on Ticats This Week. Game 4 of the season for the Tiger Cats. They're back home at Tim Hortons Field on Canada Day, July 1st. Should be a fantastic day, should be a great crowd, and maybe it'll be their first win. I'm RJ Broadhead along with Luke Tasker. And Luke, looking at the record, both teams are 0-3, but let's specifically talk about the Tiger Cats. 0-3 start. I've said time and time again, so you know I'm not concerned about it at all. I don't see anything catastrophic here. There's been a lot of good signs. Some bad luck has gone against them, but also you look at the East Division. That's what to me is the most important thing. And they're one win out of first place in the division, and it's a tough week for all the East Division teams. BC's in Ottawa, Montreal's in Saskatchewan, Winnipeg's in Toronto. So this is a chance for the Tiger Cats to take care of business on home field. Even though they're 0-3, they could get that victory and be tied for first place. It's a lovely sport, isn't it?
Yes. I told Coach
O.
Are
you concerned?
Well, I told Coach O today how positive you are. I said, not today, excuse me, earlier this week, I said, RJ has no worries about anything this season. I think it might be your hockey background where 3 games, every team loses 3 games at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I love
little shorter season
exactly.
here.
I love the optimism. And no, in all seriousness, I'm not. I have no feeling of putting up the alarm right now either. I really don't. I don't know. I from my own experience as well is from a number of rough starts that turned into productive seasons. But I just see some things that are positive to me. I think you see. Well, I'm a Coach O guy, you know, and I think that his attitude and demeanor is such that can lead a team to come back into a winning record from this place. I'm not totally frustrated with the way that Dane is playing by any means. I think the turnovers were a huge issue and they're becoming less so. And hopefully this week there's another step in the right direction. We hope Brendan Revenberg is back. The sacks are increasing. I would love to see some more defensive takeaways and turnovers. We've got our kicking game is strong right now. That's not a weak spot for us. A lot of things to be positive about, and Edmonton is struggling. I do think that, this is just they're set to put 2 halves together that both look like that first half at Tim Hortons Field this season against the Stampeders 2 weeks ago. That's the Ticats we got to see on Friday.
It is interesting when you look at the two teams statistically, and you know we're disappointed in some of the categories for the Tiger Cats, but the Elks are a little bit worse in a lot of those categories. Anything can happen in one game, but it has been a struggle for the Elks. They've given up a ton of points. Their fourth quarters have not been good. Tiger Cats have been getting off to a good start. First quarter's their best, but we've talked about it a lot. They have to be able to finish a little better. You mentioned Dane. He has his best passer rating against the Elks. And do you feel in the first couple of games he was trying to do too much? Because the game against Winnipeg, it looked like he was throwing the ball away a lot more. You had some fun with my call on Dane's slide. I was a little bit surprised because usually Dane's battling for every single yard, and I'm not saying he should be battling for every single yard. I want him to be healthy and do the slide, but we haven't seen a lot of slides out of Dane, and he seemed to be throwing the ball away a little more. So that could have been the message, that you don't have to make a big play on every play. Do you think that might have been it?
I think there's there was a noticeable attempt specifically from Dane to protect the football, and that should just be every game. Then you have to strike the balance of or some of those plays that you can hold on. You can hold on to the ball and continue to try to find something downfield. But I don't think that's really the time. I don't think that's really the action for Dane to take in response to those first 2 games. I think he was doing a good job of that. As I think back, the one time I can say, and Dane's post game interview confirmed that the throw in the red zone against Calgary in the second quarter, that was a forced throw, trying to make something happen that wasn't there. A bad decision to throw that ball, and it's exactly the way that Dane put it himself. Other than that, you can talk and coach and focus as a player on the ball security in the as far as the fumbles go, and that problem has been moving in the right direction. A lot of the turnovers or the interceptions, just aren't a huge worry to me right now. It's Stephen Dunbar Jr. unfortunately was involved in 2 of those strange plays last week in Winnipeg where the ball was thrown to him. Probably not a terrible throw by any means. It'd be hard to say that, but just the timing of the tackle and just inability to secure what would have been a real difficult catch and hit. I think you would attest to, and what you think about Stephen Dunbar Jr.'s work ethic, even though you can kind of make the argument, what I just did, that it was sort of just a unfortunate turnover, he's going to kind of take that on himself and say, no, I'm going to be a guy who can secure that catch, even though, yes, it is difficult. I'm going to make those catches the next time. And I don't know. I think there's an upward trend or a trend in the right direction, I should say, in the turnovers.
Yeah, just watching Stephen Dunbar and his work ethic, I've found in my years in the business, when a player works that hard and they don't have their best game, they usually bounce back with a really good game. So I would be shocked if Stephen Dunbar isn't a star against the Elks on Friday.
Well, I think they'll give him chances to be, and I think they need to. They'll give him a couple of big plays to make downfield, like he's already done this year. Honestly, I would love to see a couple more like that to Tim White and Braylon Addison. But of course, it's a balancing act, because some of the meaning in play calling, because some of the best football we've seen offensively that first half against Calgary, that was when Dane was getting the ball, the mini drop from the shotgun position and finding his guy right away, and never being looking for more than that 5 or 6 yard out route. If that's what's there, you take it. And guys like myself, Andy Fantuz, and Dave Stala, I should say too, who's getting honored this weekend, who's Andy and I spoke to earlier this week. You can make an entire living, an entire game plan off of that. And so the Ticats have been great with that short passing attempt, but a handful of plays. If you're going to get 60 offensive plays a game, that would be great. And if you can afford 3 or 4 of those to taking a shot to guys like Dunbar, Tim White with his speed, I think it's worth the chance.
It's a big asset the Tiger Cats have in their receiving core is the speed, ability to break tackles, those yards after the catch, and playing quick like that, Luke. Does it wear down a defense?
Yeah, absolutely. It keeps them on the field for a long time. It hurts. It's just that you can. I remember when we were chipping away like that, and you put together a long drive down the field. They're sort of exasperated. It feels like they've got no answers, because if you cannot cover the entire stretch of that CFL field, even with 12. Something's open. It's a matter of predicting where it's going to be, what coverage it is, and every coverage has a weakness to it. So if you can get that right and you can find it quickly, it's hard for a defense to shut it down. That momentum is a real thing. I'll never forget the greatest comeback in Ticat history was Jeremiah Mazzoli in Edmonton, 2016, I want to say, and Jeremiah also broke the record for consecutive passes in a row by a CFL quarterback at that time, which I think was 22 or 23. But it was just bang, bang, bang. There was never really a hard decision to make. It was just taking what was right there, and it's so difficult for a defense to find themselves once you start stringing together these short passes.
You mentioned Brendan Revenberg. He is expected back in the lineup, so that's great news. And Coulter Woodmansey is expected to start as well, so he got healthier quicker than expected. So not having the American on the offensive line, that extra American, now Wes Hills comes in at running back. And, I'm not worried about the Ticats record. I think Stephen Dunbar works hard, and I love Wes Hills. Every time I watch a practice, this guy stands out to me. I'm convinced not one defensive player can tackle him. You're going to have to gang tackle him. So he should bring a bit of a different dynamic to this running game, and hopefully it's the Tiger Cats' best running game of the year. I guess they haven't set the bar that high for that, so he should be able to accomplish it.
Yeah, you would hope so. I think you and I, each time we've seen Wes Hill take the field, he just has the speed and the quickness that he brings with his size, like you and I kind of both look at each other in the booth, go, whoa, like that was explosive, when he runs downhill hard, and you're right, he is hard to tackle. Any great running back will say, they can't do it alone, right? So the health of Revenberg, Woodmansey, that's gonna be a bonus as well. And as a receiver, it makes such a huge difference when you have that impactful 5 yards on first down in the run game, when you can get that 2nd and 3 consistently from the run game. It gives you relief of the burden of the game being kind of feeling like it's on your shoulders, but more so than that, if the run game is productive, it's sort of an endless cycle, because you need the offensive lineman being able to move people around, which means you need a healthy offensive lineman. But you need those guys being able to push people around, which makes the running back get success. And when that running back gets success, you can go back to it. And then what happens is the offensive linemen are able to help themselves out. When those front four know that it's a pass play, they tee off. It's really difficult as an offensive lineman. It makes your job even harder when they know that first movement of yours is backwards in that pocket protecting body language. In the run game, your first step is forward, and when you're driving that down, and when you can keep that the defensive lineman, a little bit in the unknown as to what it's going to be, those linemen are endlessly grateful for that running back who's getting that production. And so it takes both, and they both need each other to be successful. And if it's happening, it just, you don't need to have 100 yards a game from your running back in the CFL. You just don't. But you need to have a consistent 4-yard gain when you give him the ball. And the Ticats have not been able to do that this year. And so the burden falls heavier on Dane, falls heavier on the wide receivers, and certainly makes the offensive lineman's job more difficult. West Hills may be able to do it. We'll see if that can make an impact on the ability of the Ticat offense to stay on the field.
So a lot of football is sort of like chess, isn't it, Luke, where you anticipate what the other team's going to do, especially on defense. And if with the Tiger Cat struggles running the ball, it maybe was making it too easy for defenses to figure out what was going to happen?
I think so. And the tackles hurt a little bit more in football than chess, but you're right. It's a back and forth. Have
you ever played a big tournament in chess?
True.
maybe it gets a little rough.
Maybe
I don't know.
You sweat just as much. I don't know. Certainly there's a little back and forth there. And I think it's definitely that way for the play callers, right? They are really trying to, we're breaking down. You walk into prep for your week as a receiver or anybody in the offensive room, and you get the breakdown of the statistically of the defensive opponents that you're looking at. A lot of teams, I remember when we're looking at red zone percentages. Here's an interesting one for RJ. A lot of times you'd find, and earlier in the season there's less reps, so the stats are a little bit skewed. By the end of the season, you're working off of a lot of stats, so it's a little bit more, maybe you'd say statistically significant. But sometimes you'd walk in there and there's a team that you're facing that ran cover 0 95% of the times once you get into their 15-yard line. So you kind of know that as a receiver, as a quarterback, as a play caller, you're teeing up for that coverage. So that presents an opportunity for the defensive coordinator to throw sand in the gears and mix it up a little bit if he wants. But they're running that because that's what they think their defense is going to succeed in, backed up to their own goal line. And each field zone is different. So it is a chess match. I mean, you're really trying to, some plays you're calling that need a coverage to get to that target receiver, let's say, to get to the route, the concept that is got the first read, call it the number one guy. You'd like it to happen. And then there are plays where wide receivers can adjust to a different coverage, but everyone's got to be on the same page. So there's a lot going on there. And if you in those moments when a play caller is really on it and he's getting the right call for the right coverage, or making a call that works against a couple coverages, that's when you start really rolling. For us as players, as you're out there, as it's happening so fast, there are decisions to be made based off of a coverage that you see, or based off of leverage that you have on a defender. But it's much more a this or that, or option one, option two. Whereas you're sitting up in the booth, Tommy Condell, Mark Washington, you have the whole spectrum of your calls in front of you. and you're making your call, based off of giving your team a highest percentage chance. There's no perfect percentages, but there's a highest opportunity to win. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I love picking your brain on that. And you had such a successful career as a Tiger Cats receiver. I want to ask you about the touchdown drought here. It's up to officially 6 quarters, but almost 7 quarters because Tim White scored very early in the second quarter against Calgary. As an offense, when does it become a concern? 6 quarters without a touchdown, is that talked about? Is that you're not going to win a lot of games, I guess, if this drought continues?
Yeah. As a player, I would say, and everybody's different. Maybe there are some guys who would find some motivation in that, or kind of find motivation in looking to end that streak or dry spell of touchdowns. But I would say no is my simplest answer as to if it's talked about. Generally not. I mean, I think that that's a headliney stat, for guys like you and I to talk about in the booth, because it is interesting, and it's in a whole game.
We like our stats.
Oh, hey, that's where I am now. That's what I do now.
That's why I said we.
Yeah, that's right. Because it is interesting, and it's kind of like, wow, 6 quarters. I mean, almost 7, and I think there's a little bit more control coming from that locker room and from that receiver room as to why touchdowns haven't happened. And to boil it down to those, technical wise, you could turn on a number of plays down in the score zone in Calgary and in Winnipeg as to little things that could have gone wrong. Specifically, yes, in the rain, but to Stephen Dunbar Jr. in the end zone in Winnipeg, where he made a great play for the ball, but just too difficult to catch to secure right then, and just the little inches here or there could have led to multiple touchdowns in each of those quarters or each game, I should say, and that's what they're focused on as players.
Going back to look at last year's stats, sometimes it gives a bit of perspective. So the Tiger Cats have allowed 300 plus yards passing against in all 3 of their games this year. You go back to the 14-game regular season last year, and they only allowed 300 plus passing yards against 4 times. So they're not. The defense has really kept them in games, so it's very hard to criticize the defense. But is there any alarm bells that go off with that there's been so many more passing yards allowed?
I would say a little bit. And last week was an interesting game to me because Zach Collaros had a few those first quarter big plays down the field, 2 of them, where he had so much time, so comfortable, and immediately, we talk about the chess game and the back and forth with the coordinators, Mark Washington added pressure right away, and they were able to increase, had more sacks in Winnipeg than they had in the whole season so far, and that pressure was successful in that way. But when a quarterback is able to work through that pressure, there are just it's as simple math as could be. There are just less guys in the defensive secondary now if more guys added to the rush. That's basic, right? And so if you can defend the rush better, well, you've got an inherent weakness in your coverage. So that's the risk of blitzing in football, and I think you did see a little bit of that. And Collaros put a couple drives together with success, but I'm not really alarmed by a lack of success in pass coverage. It's a balance, you gotta, same thing as that balance between the running back and the offensive line is the same between the front 4 on any defensive unit and the 8 that are dropping in coverage in your standard coverage looks. So you got to get a win here or there, right? And there were a couple times in Winnipeg where the pressures were a result of great coverage, the sacks or being flushed from the pocket were a result of great coverage too. So not really alarmed by it. Bo Levi Mitchell put together an amazing second half that led to one of those 300-yard games. I think you just got to let that, you got to trust in that unit. There's a lot of all-stars back there. There's moving pieces too, and some injuries there as well, though not as many as damaging as some other areas for the Ticats roster. But I think you give it some weeks to progress.
And just to wrap up here, Luke, I always like to know what you're looking for going into the game for the Tiger Cats to be successful against the Elks on Friday.
You're not going to like my answer, RJ.
Why not?
Well,
not enough stats in it?
It's not. No, don't you dare. We'll get some good stats tomorrow night in the booth. No, you're not going to like my answer because it's the same answer that I have. It's about finishing. And in my opinion, finishing requires a continued aggressive approach to scoring. Keep the short passing game going. Take shots if you get an opportunity where you think it's a statistical likelihood. I mean, keep on rolling and bring pressure. And, it's for some reason, and I wish I could pin down better for you why teams have had a lot of success in the fourth quarter, but why can't that team be the Ticats this week who has the success in the fourth quarter? So absolutely finish. But it's a home game in Tim Hortons Field. I think I'm definitely looking to win a turnover battle or a turnover ratio in a game. And Coach O, who obviously comes from a defensive mindset, kind of spit back to me that, and made me, I'm coming from an offensive mind. So I'm always of saying, don't turn the ball over. But of course, the flip side of the ratio is get the ball. And so, force a turnover. So I'd love to see a turnover ratio win on Friday. And those are the two things that stick out in my mind: win the ratio and win the fourth quarter.
And the Elks have struggled with turning the ball over, and they haven't been great in the fourth quarter either. 2 0-3 teams. That means one of them is guaranteed to leave Tim Hortons Field, or at least finish the game with a victory. And the Tiger Cats, if it's them, they'll be in pretty good spot in the East, despite 3 rough games to start the season. Luke, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you on Friday, and maybe we get to call that first win of the season.
That would be great, and happy Canada Day. Can't wait to come up north and celebrate with everybody up there.
Yes, and the new uniforms. I was going to say wear your red and white for Canada, but no, wear the steel gray of the new uniforms for Hamilton. That'll be fun to see those.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Well, this pregame show is at 6:30 Eastern Time, and that will be on the Ticats Audio Network. And Luke and I take over at 7:30 for kickoff. It is a big game. The Elks and the Tiger Cats both looking for that first victory. One of them will get rid of that 0 in the win column. Looking forward to calling it. Hope you can tune in. For Luke Tasker, I'm RJ Broadhead. Thanks for listening to Ticats This Week.
It's been another busy week for your Hamilton Tiger Cats. Luke Tasker and RJ Broadhead have covered it all, and now we would like to hear from you. Email us anytime at gameday@ticats.ca. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.